My name is Allison LaForgia. I'm the managing editor of the content studio at Housing Wire, and today our webinar is From Custom to Click, How Tim O'Brien Homes Speed Sales and Delights Buyers with Higharc. Now, this is meant to be an interactive webinar. We want to hear from you. We will be answering Q&A questions at the end of today's session. So if you have questions at any time, don't hesitate to drop them in the chat. We'll be keeping an eye on it, or by using the Q&A icon that you see at the bottom of your screen. Also, a recording of today's session will be sent to all registrants later this week. So there's no need to worry if you missed something or if you want to pass this conversation on to someone else. Now, today's moderator will be John McManus, who is the VP of Home Building at HW Media and the publisher of the Builders Daily. John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Allison. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second of our leadership webinar series, From Silos to Systems, with our partners at Higharc. I'm John McManus, founder of the Builders Daily and recently VP of Home Building at Housing Wire. We've all seen how the housing market has shifted in 2025. Builders are cautious. Sales cycles, they're stretching out, and the old way of doing business doesn't move fast enough anymore. Every builder I talk to is facing the same tension. On one side, pressure to maintain sales velocity and margins. On the other, buyers who are hesitant, uncertain, and harder to win over. So if you're here listening to us today, then like me, you want to hear about what's working in a marketplace that has its challenges. That's what makes today's conversation so timely. It's about more than software. It's about creating certainty, transparency, and trust in a business where those qualities are harder to deliver than ever. Now what we're seeing out there today are some smart operators, outliers, who are doing something different. They're retooling and rewiring their operations. They're moving away from silo-based teams, each working from its own set of data toward more coordinated and integrated systems. The one goal here is a single source of truth, a playbook that the whole company can work from. Why are they doing this? They're doing it to eliminate inefficiency, to save time, to ensure quality construction that avoids costly warranty repairs, and most importantly, to bring the organization's entire ecosystem of team members into a transparent state of accountability. When everyone sees the same thing and works from the same system, you get certainty, you get speed and trust. Now that's the framing for today's discussion. And it's exactly where our guests put their focus today. And I'm thrilled to be joined by three people who are right in the middle of that change. Danny Lowry, president of Tim O'Brien Homes, a company recognized nationally with award after award for building high-performance, purpose-driven homes in Wisconsin. His colleague, Ryan Hillgartner, vice president of marketing and customer experience at Tim O'Brien Homes, who's been on the front lines of transforming sales and process into an integrated system that is leaving the silos and moving into a system. And Connor Sadam, director at Higharc, who's worked closely with Tim O'Brien Homes since the very beginning of their technological journey together. Now, here's how we'll run our webinar today. We'll hear first from Danny and Ryan on what's changed in their business and why, and Connor will add his perspective on broader industry lessons. And we'll leave time at the end for audience Q&A, so if you got questions, please drop them into the chat as we go. Danny, now let's start with you. Will you tell us a little bit about Tim O'Brien Homes, how you look at your customers, why it is that the customer-forward DNA of your organization is really what you've built from with your team and Tim himself for years now, and what the current state of the market is from your perspective. Why did you decide that certainty and visualization had to be a strategic priority right now?
Hi, John. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for having us to discuss our recent journey and share some of how our team has been solving difficult problems while providing more value to our buyers, while we're also trying to grow the business, right? For context, We serve the two largest markets in Wisconsin, Madison, Milwaukee. Each market does approximately 1,500 single family or duplex permits annually, and we're currently the number 2 volume builder in each market, doing roughly 100 homes a year in each market. Our mix of to-be-built to spec, or what we call ready homes, is under 50%. That's an area we've been struggling, I think, as we grow for years to keep even flow in the business. But we really, from an experience standpoint, we want to build to-be-built homes for a number of reasons I'm sure we'll talk about in this webinar. Each market has one larger production-based builder who serves buyers entering the market, while the rest of our competition or builders range from semi-custom to custom. We primarily build in mixed communities with other custom builders, many who build 5 to 20 homes a year. Context might be relevant to others today, and I think many are faced with a similar challenge of trying to scale and bring efficiency and value to our customers while competing with kind of those smaller, nimble custom builders that, at least on the sales floor, can promise to give buyers anything they want. Our value proposition is unique, like you mentioned. We're not the low-cost provider in our markets. We market to, and hopefully our reputation over the years brings us buyers who appreciate long-term value and homes built to a higher standard. Buyers who will pay more on the front end. That's how we specifically market, that they're going to pay more to reduce their annual operating costs and invest in green and energy efficient features that make economic sense, right? But we can't just data dump that onto the buyer and vomit all that information to them the minute they come into our model. Right? We have to quickly create trust on the sales floor that we're here to help them solve a problem, and continuous deposits of certainty. Use that word. I think we'll use that a lot today as we solve their need for a new home. Ryan specifically will talk a lot about more the integration and automation efforts today. But what we've been talking about in Timber Ryan Homes for solving for a long time now is what our customers tell us, like in our feedback surveys that we've been doing for years. They wish they had the ability to visualize their home before they signed contract on it and before they built it. That's why our model homes, I'm sure a lot of the builders on the call know this, your model homes eclipse all other plans in sales, in new home sales by far, right? I mean, a couple of years ago, we'll talk about simplification, but we were probably 35 to 40 plans in our portfolio, and the top 8, 9 would sell 80%, and the models would probably sell 30 to 40% of our plans, right? It's what people can see themselves in. So I think why we're investing in this, customers can visualize, and Connor and Ryan will show some demos of what we're doing, but customers can visualize almost everything they buy. They can see and configure a car, a phone, a piece of furniture online, and feel confident in the purchase. When it comes to homes too, buyers are asked to imagine the finished product from static plans or memory, or if we have the capital, we just build a ton of models for them to feel, right? That gap creates a lot of hesitation when buyers are uncertain. They shop, compare, and I think unfortunately for us, too often they settle for a spec or an inventory home, causing our product to compete more heavily as a commodity, right? The existing house stock. So the operational efficiencies are all part of this too. Why we've kind of had a past of draw a lot of plans and draw just enough and customize the rest. It doesn't work in a production environment when we're trying to scale, right? And that time frame from Ryan bringing a marketing lead into the business to us delivering product right now, we're improving on this, but it's roughly a year plus or minus a month, right? And that's why you see buyers converting to specs. They can't visualize it. 2, they can't wait for it. So we're working hard with partners like Higharc to change the visualization space. I'm most focused on how do we speed up that lead to contract conversion process and sell a much stronger mix of to-be homes versus inventory homes.
Right. So Danny, you mentioned that the timelines on to be built can be some number of months from contract to delivery. Now, how does that timeline affect customer hesitation, and why visualization or the lack of it helps to shape buyers and their decision?
Well, timeline specifically, and I'm sure every market kind of deals with that spring market rush, right? And what we've been trying to solve, and when we were smaller, I'd say 5 or 6 years ago, our operations didn't totally operate together. We kind of had separate markets in both Madison and Milwaukee. When we were smaller in Madison at about 40, 50 homes a year, we could customize quite a bit more nimbly, and we could sell a home in June at the end of the spring selling market and still deliver it typically by the holidays when people wanted to make that purchase decision in the year and still move in. I mean, really now that we're up around 200, 225 homes, it just got so complicated that by March, our delivery time is up, right? So we missed that whole spring selling season on the sales floor for delivering a home. So that's really what was kind of driving. We have to find a way to simplify this process, and that started with Higharc, specifically cutting from 35 plans to 20 plans immediately into their product when we were learning and onboarding the drafting software. And now we're working on the second iteration of really bringing that down to 12 plans that we can flesh out and buyers can more readily visualize.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. That set the stage perfectly. Now, Ryan, let me bring you in, and from your seat in sales and marketing, what have you seen since you began embedding Higharc into your website? How has this changed the speed and the clarity that those first buyer interactions now kind of carry over to you?
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's a good question. So we've had probably about 2 months, just shy of 2 months of being up on a new website platform. So we had kind of went from one web developer, worked with a new developer now, and sort of with Higharc and how that experience would be on our website in mind the whole time. I guess that being said, when we originally thought of that, the Higharc solution was still sort of in beta. So we've gotten to really see how that has kind of come to fruition right now. Yeah, since turning on the new website, and then doing a little bit of like social media campaign around, mirroring a phone and how you can twirl the plan in 3D and customize your home online. The feedback's been really, really great. We're still sort of at that, again, probably just under 2 months of data. So we're really gonna have to kind of take a sharp look at that once we've got a little bit more data. But kind of arbitrarily, just like kind of Danny and myself talking to the sales team, they're starting to really understand the benefit. And this is where we've been, from my point of view, I've been really excited about what we're doing with Higharc for like 3 years. But for the rest of the organization and for other people in our industry and in our market, you haven't really gotten to like really see it too much. Like I could see it and I could talk about it and be excited about it. But now that it's sort of like live out there to the public and we're getting positive feedback from the public that is making some really cool looking plans and coming in with their plan ready to go. Not saying that the sales team would not still need to do good discovery and be like, is this the right home for you? What lots are you looking at? Can this home even fit on your lot? But there's been excitement of them putting together and then showing up to an appointment. I've had a couple sales professionals come up to me and be like, yeah, that was like really cool. They had this plan and it was ready to go. We talked through and then I moved it over into the neighborhood and we could start going. So as Danny was alluding to, we've been wanting to figure out a way to have better visualization and to go quicker. And we're right here at sort of the beginning of having all of this kind of come to fruition with, again, having that on our website. And then at the probably 50% through a lot of the integrations that we're working on, which we can go over that in a little bit too.
Sure. Can you just unpack a little bit the reduced discovery time that when somebody comes in with that plan, I can understand it being awesome for the salesperson or and hearing it from you just sort of deconstruct it a little bit so we can understand that time and what may happen negative or positive in that time.
Sure. Well, I guess to start, we don't put and we don't plan to put pricing on our website So I guess one of the things that you could say could be a drawback is like they're going to pick the biggest, most beautiful plan. But I think people are also smart enough to kind of do their own research. They can do their own research on our website to find out what neighborhoods we're in and like the general starting price points. So I think they can get a pretty good understanding of what would make sense for their budget. If they're going to just start right away with the biggest possible plan, you're probably going to be pushing up towards the higher end of what we're going to build for people. So I think consumers are smart enough to do that, and I think everybody here on panel and listening in, everybody does a ton of research before they make any big buying decision. I mean, we know we're the biggest buying decision, but even the smallest things, I love researching my own personal interests. I did a lot of research. I was recently looking at getting a new coffee maker, and a small price point of that compared to a home and the amount of time I'm spending doing the research, a lot goes into it. So I think consumers are smarter and they're used to it. So they're going to do a lot of research before they even want to speak to us. So I think the more tools we're giving on the front end for people to be able to do that research is going to help them make the right decision, make the decision that's correct for them and their family. And I think adding visualization like this is only going to help going forward. I'm sure anybody else that's listening from a marketing perspective knows that they need to have and do have. A lot of people have really good visualization products. I just happen to believe that we have the best because of our decision to work with Higharc.
Yeah, and you're getting at something that I'm hearing a lot among home builders, which has to do with recognizing that they've been successful and achieved some operational excellence, even in despite of having workflows that are run independently of one another. And so when you're able to speed up that discovery process, as you said, at the customer level, it has implications as to how you can work that into your operation. And you've mentioned integrations that are important to be able to more than deliver that visualization, but then to carry that operationally back into Tim O'Brien Homes and have responsiveness across the operational ecosystem. So could you talk a little bit about what it takes? I know that it's a work in progress, but what are you looking to have happen with those connections on HubSpot, on Mark Systems, and Higharc, starting to integrate as a full tech stack?
Sure. I'll really quickly I don't like to rely on slides or anything, but I think it will probably help just so I'm not just kind of blabbing and talking. Does that everybody see the screen right
Yes.
now? So this is a very like elementary, like if you had to try to just explain it really simplistically, which I would like to try to do, this is what we are in the midst of doing. We know we have 3 great systems that we work with. We are raving fans of HubSpot, Mark Systems, and Higharc. This is the ecosystem that we want to be in, that we're proud to be in. We kind of just recently, maybe a year and a half ago, kind of really got into Mark Systems, and so far it's been very great for us. And with the idea again of trying to make first thinking about customers, what do customers want? But then second, how can we make things easier and better for our team to execute our plan? I think everybody would know, like a lot of builders are kind of old school still, and we're not like, just because I'm sitting here talking about some pretty cool things we're doing doesn't mean we don't do some archaic stuff, some extra Excel reports that we shouldn't be doing, or keeping data in different spaces. But what the overall goal is that we're going to be able to say, this is where everything lives, and we actually will pull data out into Power BI for other reports. But for the sake of this discussion, we want things to be able to flow so that we're not being redundant, we're not having bad data, and that something needs to go from Higharc to HubSpot and back the other way, we want to make sure that that happens so that the sales team can focus on selling, and that they don't need to be spending time entering somebody into HubSpot, entering them in to Higharc, then entering them into Mark Systems. So myself and then Ryan Johannes, who works with us on our team as a data analyst, would not be able to do this without his expertise. So and then we're also working with another company called Home Builder Ops, who's helping us with some of the integrations. But essentially, really quick to kind of wrap that part up, is we're really excited for the possibility we're on the edge of right now. ECI, Mark Systems, all the base pricing for communities and all the options being populated into Higharc, so that our sales team would be able to sit, with an engaged prospect, doing a pricing appointment, and go through and add everything that they want to add, all structural things. We'd still leave other things into the design studio, but price out in 3D, what is your home going to look like and what is it going to cost? And we feel like we're getting very close to solving that. And then one other one I can maybe demo if we have time too, is that we have an integration about to go live between HubSpot and Higharc. And we've worked with several members of Higharc's team with the integrations. They've been really open to help us with that too. So I can show that in a little bit if it makes sense to our discussion. But this is really the flow that we're looking to solve, and I think we're getting really close. We're slowly chipping away at all three of these connections.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'd love to see the demo, and that way we could have Connor enter the conversation and add, Connor, what you've seen in terms of adoption barriers for other builders. But yeah, Ryan, go ahead, go for it. Let's see the demo.
Sure. I just wanted to be sure that made sense with the flow. All right, I'm switching between tabs. Can we see? I just want to make sure it wasn't locked on one part. Okay, so just on the website, just to kind of give the front end experience a little bit of a background, is if somebody was interested in this plan, we have a Higharc capability embedded right here, which is a walkthrough, which I can show too later. But then we have this launch 3D builder on our website. So for the sake of internet speeds, I already clicked on that and I already started building a home. So I think most people, if they are attending, probably have a little bit of understanding about Higharc, or probably have seen a Higharc demo before. But I guess for the sake of just kind of showing a little bit, is, live in 3D. This is on our website. Just from that link I just clicked, people are able to add and then see it in 3D, which that's really sort of the game changer. There's a lot of visualization companies that have it. It's normally some exterior rendering, color choices, and adding that sunroom would probably be more along the lines of in this 2D view, which you can go between 2D and 3D. Some of the other stuff that's really cool though is sort of that dollhouse view. So if you were looking at some of these options, if I wanted to change my fireplace, I didn't want a fireplace, you'll see that disappear from here. And so again, pretty cool, pretty awesome experience for people on our website to be able to go through and do that. This is all customizable too. You can have as much or as little options on here as you'd like. But I guess just really quick to kind of show a little bit more too about how that would work. I'm just going to use a demo name here, and we'll see. It worked this morning, but I wanted to see if we could just get that to go in live right now. So I'm going to go ahead here, save this plan, which is the experience that a customer would have. That would go into this area right here, which it just did go through already. So I see it right there. This is the test account. Not trying to switch tabs too much. That was the Higharc backend. Now we're in our HubSpot sandbox account. So Sandbox is just basically the ecosystem of our HubSpot, but on a testing account, not having all of this live. So the integration is not live, like I said earlier. So if I'm looking through here as a salesperson, if this is somebody that's coming in, I've got an appointment scheduled with this person here, I'd be able to, you see right here, it's got Higharc home plans. If I just do a refresh, that should kick that new one in here. So you'd be able to see at a glance, like, in addition to all the other things that salespeople need to be paying attention to in their CRM, this is just making that connection really easy for them. So this is the one that I just created right here. So the salesperson can be like, oh, they just made another one this morning before their appointment. Let me take a look at what changes they might have made. And then they'd be able to kind of get that view. So this is the view that the sales pro would get. Excuse me. So same exact plan that I just made, everything's saved out. It has all the options listed over here. And just a really good way to kind of find what their interests are. It's probably highly weighted on what is important to them. So you can go through, check all the options that they have in there. And then again, through discovery, through making sure that this is the right plan for them, you can then very easily move this from a generic Birchwood, sort of not attached to a community, and import that directly into a community. And then again, that's where that next integration piece falls into play. If I took this, this person wanted to build this Birchwood in Autumn Ridge, I'd be able to open that into Autumn Ridge. And once that integration is complete with Mark Systems, all that pricing would be live and in front of them. So they'd be able to sit there and look at, oh, that falls in line with what I thought, or whoa, we got to back a couple things out. I think we're a little bit higher. And again, I'm kind of simplifying that experience, but trying to condense it so it kind of makes sense to everybody.
Yes,
That's
and
kind of the quick tour.
Yes, and this is evolved. You've been at this for 3 years with Higharc, right? Connor, could you characterize? I mean, these are not a flip of a switch and then you're into this capability. You've really worked hard. Can you talk about adoption and barriers and implementation and kind of what it takes to get where Tim O'Brien Homes has evolved its experience?
Sure. From what almost going on 4 years ago, we started on this journey together, and I think when we started on the journey, it was a lot about defining what that journey would be. Tim O'Brien was one of Higharc's first kind of more nationally known builder customers, and so we spent a lot of time, and we still spend a lot of time listening to our customers and figure out what their needs are and how to make the system work for them. One of the reasons, personally, I went to Higharc after 20 years of home building is because I thought like they actually wanted to understand home building and not just be a tech company that's going to provide some off-the-shelf solution that might work for some people and not work for other people, and best of luck. But I do think Ryan, actually, Danny mentioned it a little at the beginning about going from 35 plans to 20 plans to 12 plans. And that was part of the evolution. And I think part of that process was, you guys have, Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have less plans, but you have more capabilities in those plans. So you probably actually have more options and more ways to build out those plans. Ryan was showing a little preview of that with all the different ways you can build out the plans. So what we've done is, over the past couple of years, is simplify the offerings to provide a better experience for the customer, and also provide a better experience for the drafting team as well, purchasing and estimating, bringing all those things together so that everybody's working off of the same product data. Ryan had the image up with HubSpot and Mark Systems, and then Higharc. Higharc, we like to say, is the ERP for your product data, right? It's the single source of truth for the data that comes out of the home plans. And that was the focus at the beginning for us, is how can we make Higharc work for, industry leaders like Tim O'Brien. And now I think with the market conditions being what they are, I think it's been fun to watch builders like Tim O'Brien double down on that and say, okay, well, we've made that investment and now the market's pulled back a little bit, but what that actually does is give us an opportunity to get ahead of the next market upswing, which we know is coming. It always comes back eventually. And I think that's what the best builders are doing right now. And that's what a lot of our builders that are currently using Higharc and a lot of the ones we're talking to right now are. Things are a little slower, sure, but this is when you dig in and figure out how can you protect margins? How can you do more with less? How can you accelerate your speed to market for new communities? How can you have better accuracy across your entire ecosystem? How can you minimize overhead? How can you get more out of the people you have so that by using systems, so that when the market comes back, you're not just adding people, your systems are in place and they allow you to scale effectively. So I think that's what Higharc has always been focused on. And home builders always seems like we're too busy making too much money to change, or too worried about not making enough money to change. And I think the best ones know that this is the time where we really figure out how to maximize opportunity when the market comes back.
Sure. And we're in a time where structural forces, the cost of capital is elevated, and looks structurally like it's going to be challenging for home builders, private builders to access that capital, and in a patient sense. We've got input costs on the materials and product side that are elevated and subject to volatility with respect to what's coming in and out of the country. We've got labor capacity constraint that could cause some stresses on costs as well. And so, and then we have this struggle now to make it so that households are going to be able to have the wherewithal to be in the homes that they're looking to be in. So having workflows and operations where you have opportunity area to work on the below the line cost, those below the line expenses, and at the same time enrich the above the line experience of the home buyer. This is a pretty remarkable kind of nexus in terms of capability. Now, Danny, you've said that what excites you most is how your sales professionals are now becoming advocates of this system. Can you expand on that and how it's changed the conversation that they're having between sales and production and the rest of your team as a business change pivot?
Yeah, that's been recent and a lot of fun for my seat, because the last couple of years of investment and building, and there's a lot of change management around this. We made a decision to invest, and from Ryan's graphic, we bit off, maybe in hindsight, a little more than we can chew. That we did a whole new ERP system. HubSpot was maybe a year old at that time, and changing from Revit to Higharc. So it's been a lot of change management through the company. So starting to hear the fruits of, at first complaints, of course, of a new system, something new you have to learn. But the idea of, for years we developed, I'd say on average 6 new plans a year, right? We just had a guy designing stuff, and we didn't have maybe great data, a lot of feel data on what the market's asking for, what we need, and it was just add new plans, right? So I think the initial pushback that, hey, we're gonna find a way to get down to 20 immediately and eventually get down to 12, and then we'll start getting really good data, expand our plans, almost make them like transformer plans. It's a message that Ryan and I and others had to beat the drum for a couple of years. So Most recently, I've been doing a lot of coffees or lunches with all of our sales professionals in the organization, and to the timing of that right after the release on the website for the demo that Ryan just showed you couldn't have been better to hear them talk about how they're almost instantly seeing the fruits of that simplification on the sales floor, and how they're almost becoming product advocates now to our production team, right? The receivers of what sales sells on the sales floor, which to date and still has a decent amount of customization to it. To hear them now preach to the production team, how we're simplifying and how we're removing a lot of that pain within the organization has been pretty neat.
Yeah, and that's underlying that is accountability across those different functional areas, and which means that you can get the whole team working together. We have a question. I want to raise it. It came from Seth Clark to everybody. Can you speak to what the upfront investment is for setting up something similar for another company? Maybe Connor, address this in the way that you can, characterize it how you can, so that we can get your sense of how that might be impacting different organizations and different geographies.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Seth. Let me talk about the second half of the question first, which is what's the process now that the tool is built? The process is, frankly, when we started with Tim O'Brien, the process has evolved a lot since then. And we've got a pretty awesome implementation team. And I would say one of the things that Higharc learned 4 years ago and through working with companies like Tim O'Brien was you can't take the train off the tracks in order to build a new train, right? So that's one of the hardest things about change management. But one of the things that I think we have figured out and embraced at Higharc is I started at Higharc, I was employee number 20, and now we're up over 140 people. And a lot of those people are experts and professionals and spend all of their time on helping our builders implement the systems, so that it's not just, oh, well, you're going to go watch these videos or you're going to do a week-long training and then good luck. We actually spend a lot of time implementing the first homes for builders, so that you're not pulling resources from your current workflows and trying to do two things at once, adding to the stress and adding to the the stress of the implementation itself. So the process is very involved. Our sales cycles are admittedly longer probably than most software companies, because we really spend a lot of time on the front end before you sign up, figuring out what the best plan is and making sure that we can execute it. We get comments all the time. Some of the most proud comments I think we get at Higharc is from customers saying how committed we are to trying to get it right. Do we get it right every time? Absolutely not. But we are really a committed partner and not just a software that you buy and then we never talk to you again. So in terms of the upfront investment, obviously really varies. If you're doing 100 homes a year and they're highly customized and you've got 50 plans, or if you're doing 500 homes a year and you've got 20 plans and you've got less options, there's tons of variables. Also your goals for what you're trying to get out of the system first, how quickly you want to get set up. But that is why we go into a pretty in-depth evaluation process to make sure. So maybe sounds like I'm avoiding the question, but this isn't like let's just go buy a car off the lot. We want to provide a best-in-class implementation, and we want to provide a service that works the best for your business. And so obviously that involves putting together a custom pricing investment that's going to make the most sense. So Seth, happy to speak to you about it and learn more about your business at a later time.
Thanks. And you've talked about the process, Connor. Ryan, let's come back to you. And Obviously, Tim O'Brien Homes is very high on the experience that you have with Higharc, and what I wanted to see now is what you're looking at in terms of measuring some of the benchmarks that you're looking at to measure the shift that you're going to be able to see in your data points around referrals, around warranty, around quality and customer satisfaction. What are you starting to kind of figure out how that dashboard looks and how this experience, this richer experience, is going to feed into that?
Yeah, and again, we've been in and out of Higharc. Like now I feel like this is a good time to really start focusing on that data, because now we have all the plans that we initially sought out to put in are all in there. And we've been adding a couple that maybe we didn't think we were going to, but just based on certain land positions or a few tighter home plans that we do have relevance going into Higharc, which we might not have thought originally. So sort of the journey of the data collection is sort of going to start right now. And I alluded to earlier, we're fortunate enough now to have two people working with us that are both data analysts. And so we're really going to lean on them to be sort of building out a lot of Power BI reports. I'd imagine you hit one on the head. Obviously, referrals is going to be something that you cannot definitively say that it was all because of Higharc, but like you start seeing some of the experiences and making note of how quickly and how easy and how not custom we had to be in order to meet their expectations. I think those are the people that we need to continue to focus on, and those are going to be the people that are going to refer us the most. And then we're going to be looking at some velocity metrics as well. Lead to contract. How quick was that? We can break that down in different segments as well to kind of see where we might be lagging in certain points. But yeah, we do see that once we have the integrations set in, the velocity is going to really start picking up as well. And then as we didn't really touch on this, but I'll just kind of paint the picture for a second. The next step that what we're really doing with Higharc is, Connor alluded to it for a second, but we're taking more of our core plans, not thinking about some of the fringe ones on the outside, and building those out, adding rooms, subtracting rooms, and now sort of what Danny was saying a little bit too, sort of transformer plans where we're doing less plans, but we're adding a lot of different options so that we don't have to customize anymore. There's always been yeah, if we just do this one thing, I'm going to get this contract. Yeah, they like everything about this, but we really just need to switch like 2 walls and make this a powder room instead of, a rear foyer closet or something, whatever it might be. We did, I think, a good exercise along with our sales team. We marked down which plans we're going to get at this new 2.0 treatment. That's what we're going to call it in the back end. On the front end, we're not going to call it Birchwood 2.0, but what plans are going to get this new 2.0 treatment, which is sales team come with ideas. We're going to walk through this with our lead home designer, and we're going to talk through what options make sense for this plan that are missing so that you don't need to customize it anymore, so that we can go faster. And it's not just about being faster, it's about customer satisfaction too, so that we're going to be going faster and the customer has a better expectation of what they're actually going to get, because the option is in Higharc, and when the sales pro turns on that option, they can see it, and it can spit out a sales brochure of all the options that they selected, and they can use that link later and go show friends and family and twirl their home around on the sides and do the dollhouse view. So you're giving the customer ultimately a better tool, so that we're going to get more referrals, we're going to have higher customer satisfaction, and we're going to go quicker.
Yeah.
And we're widening the gap too from that customization, right? I think that's one of the challenges we have is that, you know, I said before, we draw just enough and then customize the rest. And so the example for that is garages. You know, when we had 35 plans, we'd have our standard 2-car garage, we draw our 3rd-car garage, and maybe a side load entry garage. And we would allow our sales team through options in the system to reconfigure the garage, add a 4-foot bump onto the garage, pull it forward so we could get a staircase down to the basement. We're in a cold market with basements. So you're almost setting up your system to customize because we have so many plan offerings that we couldn't possibly keep up with all the options. So this is going in a little bit of reverse where it has to filter down into the operation, where our sales team, we can't fault the sales team for almost going to custom because we've almost given them those tools to customize for so long, where we have to re-engineer it. And now on that garage example with Higharc and this 2.0 Birchwood, we have all of those options, right? We have the bumps drawn, the bumps forward, the bumps to the sides, a canted, a courtyard, a side load that will instantly price out so the buyers know what they're getting.
Right.
If I can add one thing to that, John, then obviously it becomes really important that depending on the community you're deploying that plan in, you can go through and say, okay, we're going to allow for these options to be available in this community, you know, these stone water table heights. That becomes really critical. And that's what most systems can't do, like Higharc does, which is go, okay, I now have this plan with hundreds of options, and now I'm going to, just by going through and toggling on and off a bunch of settings, instead of redrafting a plan for this new community, I'm redrafting it with toggle settings instead of with hours and hours and hours by a drafting team. So sorry to interrupt.
No, and I think that's important. I just want to go back to Danny for a moment. You know, the customer experience and the impact on referrals and warranty and customer satisfaction scoring is beginning to kind of come clear. Can you talk a little bit about KPIs on the business itself in terms of how you achieve greater operational improvement through this tech stack integration, pulling it through so that you're able to purchase better and be responsive to the different areas of volatility in a marketplace like now?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and first and foremost, I think people are getting the picture. We've taken the long view on this, right? It was not something we knew we were entering into lightly or could flip a switch and see results right away. As far as KPIs that we're starting to mention, Ryan mentioned that speed of sale. That's the one I'm watching the most, is when we get that lead in and our e-lead sales professional sets an on-site appointment and them kind of coming in and moving through what we see in HubSpot. How is that shortening and how are we achieving additional to-be-built sales out of it? For our organization, we know, like, just controlling that process and setting up that process with the buyer, being able to set expectations from day one. And we see it because, again, we're close to 50-50 between spec homes and to-be-builts. Our survey scores on our to-be-builts typically far out exceed our survey scores on our ready homes because we just don't have the time, and they may be coming in with a realtor for a home that's already built, right? We don't have the time to set those expectations and manage that journey with the buyer. So we know just by increasing our to-be-built mix, our service scores will go up. We'll get better data and feedback from the customer, and from an operational profit standpoint side of the business, just in increasing our mix 5 to 10% will easily make the ROI work for us.
Right. So let's pivot now into that kind of takeaway, Danny, that speed of sale velocity that you've got. If there's another builder on the fence on making changes in this kind of environment where people are sharpening pencils and looking for, you know, both the cost control and management, as well as being able to delight customers, what's the single most important reason not to wait, even though it's a slower time now?
Yeah, whether it's Higharc or not, I think that our biggest focus and takeaway over the last couple of years is just simplify. Find a way to simplify. If our example of 35 plans down to now eventually 12, that just runs through the whole organization, right? It gives them, if you're trying to bring something on, I mean, to give your team the win of some breathing room, and some early wins with all the additional tasks they're going to take on for implementing a new system, I would definitely use that strategy. And then we've tried to be, in some other areas of our business, we've tried to be more and more transparent with tracking and showing some key KPIs, because it's amazing what you track and you show and you talk about week after week, how it just naturally improves. So I would say if you're taking on Higharc or taking on some other initiative in your organization, especially related to new softwares or big initiatives, find some KPIs that you can improve in the short term and the long term, and track and show them. And that's been kind of a game changer for us, especially this year.
Ryan, how about you? Is there a number one takeaway that you'd want your peers to leave this conversation from as a value?
Yeah, I suppose I've been so ingrained in like what we're doing. It's kind of hard for me to, say, exactly like, what to say to somebody else that doesn't have the exact same systems that I have. But like, I think that the direction that we're going with integrations is extremely, I'm trying to think from like a non-Higharc, because not everybody on the call will be with Higharc, and obviously we're glowing about that decision. But I think where a lot of people are going, some of our builder peers are going, is really being smart about your data and knowing that traditionally builders have been old school, taking that very seriously, I think is extremely important. I've always kind of understood that, but didn't really understand until this journey of like how important it is to think about, well, where is that data going to originate, and like what friction and problems you cause by not having clean data. It's been a really great exercise working with our data analyst on just kind of talking about, we really need to plan this out before we hit go. So if we wanted to, we could have raced through this and had all these integrations up at probably, 50%, but you'd still be running into problems. So I think we're seeing this from other builder peers that we're in other networking groups, and a lot of people are kind of going down this data analytics and business analyst type roles for their organization. I think that that's extremely important.
Yeah. And Connor, I mean, after having listened to Danny and Ryan, what would you say that the audience could take away from hearing them in terms of some of the barriers and kind of hesitation that you find from other companies thinking about adopting this kind of system?
Yeah, I think I've been traveling a lot lately and talking to a lot of builders all across the country, and everybody's kind of, a lot of people are on edge or are kind of waiting to see what happens. I said it a little bit before, but I think this really is a time where, when I've been talking to builders, this is the time to see what's out there, evaluate what's out there, evaluate how you're going to use data as an integral part of the future of your business. Because like we mentioned, a lot of home builders are still using tools for the fundamentals of their organization that are frankly not even from this century. So now is a perfect time to start, stacking the sandbags to get ready for when the next flood of buyers, the floodgates open. You can't start stacking the sandbags once the river's already crested, right? That seems like a bit of an old school metaphor, but sorry, I just thought of it in that moment. But I do think that's the key. What I've been very frankly telling builders that I've been talking to is, if you're looking at evaluating technology and looking at making an investment, right now, you probably have slightly more time to do that than when the market is insanely busy. And if nothing else, if you decide not ready to make a leap, whether it's Higharc or anything else, you're you're educating yourself and you're up to date on what's out there, so that when you are ready to make a decision, you can make a better informed decision, and you're not starting from scratch and going, oh man, now all of a sudden everything's blowing up and now we need to add 5 people. And instead you'll know, okay, well, we could add 5 people, or we could start investing in systems and data in order to let the people we have, which already have that inherent knowledge of our business, do more and, be better at their jobs.
Thank you. We have a minute or two left. If there's any questions, some of the great work I've been seeing builders do in the last few years is just recognizing how their systems all have data that haven't necessarily been managed in legacy systems, and are all starting to recognize that they represent the power to transform an operation, to be better at the operational level, as well as the meeting a customer's needs. I think this time period where sales have been slower and given home builders more challenge in terms of meeting a marketplace where affordability and other forces are more challenging now. Understanding that the data is a part of it at the CRM, the sales level, the product development level, the purchasing and resourcing level, a necessary first step. So I think that what you're all saying is that use the time, the slower time, to appreciate that you have to make that change to secure that data and make it so that it's able to be common enough, shared across your system, to eventually evolve a system that is holistically operating all in that single source of truth that people talk about. So I want to thank Danny and Ryan and Connor so much for your remarks this afternoon. And
I do want to jump into one quick audience question, John.
oh, okay. Oh, yes.
So the audience question that I have is that, first, clearly the tools like Higharc are helping builders move to market more efficiently. And the question is, have the Tim O'Brien folks seen ways in which it's helped you offer better products, healthier, more sustainable, higher quality in the design and construction? Besides the GTM speed, can you talk about other benefits you've experienced?
Connor, do you want to take that one? I saw your note.
I did write a note. Well, I mean, I was going to ask you guys. I haven't been involved in the design side, but what I've seen other builders be able to do is, because you can iterate on design in Higharc Studio, which is our kind of design software that feeds all of this data. It's the basis of the data engine. Because you can iterate in 3D and you can do it really quickly. I'm thinking one builder in particular who will have design meetings where they'll make changes on the fly, and they'll actually go in and be able to look in 3D. And I know Higharc's not the only system that can look at a BIM model, a building model in 3D, but because we can make a change to a design in 3D and then immediately see what the cost outcomes are of that change, because we're connected with estimating, and we can immediately see what that will look like on our website, and we can do so much more faster because of the connected nature of the system. I'd love to hear either of your guys' thoughts on how. I mean, I know you guys are big into green, but from a design perspective, it's all about being able to quickly evaluate and investigate design alternatives. And I'm sure some of those are.
Yeah, I would say with that, we use Microsoft Teams as a platform here at Tim O'Brien Homes. And we have a monthly architectural kind of design meeting. But what's changed with Higharc is using a Teams platform and channels is we've been able to integrate our sales pros into that design iterative process. Primarily right now to find mistakes that wouldn't be found until they're in the field and very costly to us, right? But they just the visualization of Higharc when we release a new plan or new iteration of that plan, they're involved in the process so quickly that we'll typically find 3 or 4 things that, you know, getting through all the options we missed, and our lead designer is able to fix it within a minute, right? And respond back that this is fixed. Where typically it was queued up, changes were so hard to manage, things you would find would be queued up for like that next quarter or next half year for fixes.
Yeah, I could just touch on it for a half second, just I know we're at time. That's something, I mean, besides go to market speed, we probably need to start pushing on that a little bit more. But the walking the home in 3D before you build, I think is going to be extremely important. And then you did talk about healthier, more sustainable. We have not gone down that angle as far as like how could we use Higharc to amp that up even more. I mean, that is one of the things I'm most passionate about what our company does as a distinguishing factor in the marketplace is we are the high performance, healthier, sustainable builder. But that's an interesting point. So I like where you're going with that. Thank you.
And unfortunately, we are at the top of the hour. So that about wraps up today's webinar from custom to click, how Tim O'Brien's home speed sales and delights buyers with Higharc. I want to thank our panelists, Ryan, Danny, and Connor, and John for leading us through this conversation and sharing their expertise. To our audience, once again, Housing Wire and the Builders Daily will be sending out a recording of today's session to all registrants. You'll also be able to access the full webinar on the Builders Daily and on our website at housingwire.com/webinars. Thank you again for being with us. We look forward to seeing you all at a future The Builders Daily or Housing Wire event. Have a great afternoon, y'all.